Well, it's 2:30 and we're going to get started. I'm Deb Ehrenberg from US Rowing. I'm an Adaptive Development Associate, and our special guest today for the Adaptive Monthly Zoom is Ellen Minsner, who is the Director of High Performance Rowing for US Rowing. And Ellen, thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah.
Ellen is going to, has a brief presentation with some slides that we're going to share with you now. And afterwards or during her presentation, you are welcome to jump in on a chat, put questions in the chat box, and we'll answer them when Ellen's done with her slides. So without further ado, Ellen, welcome.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. I don't really feel like a special guest, but I'm certainly happy to be here. I will correct Deb, though, in case Yossi takes a look at this at some point, that I'm the Director of Para High Performance. And I think Deb said Director of High Performance. So just to kind of set the record straight there. But yeah, we have a good group on the call today, and really this call hopefully is about you all. Many of you already recognize the names. I haven't seen every name in here. Have been sort of working at clubs at every different level to advance para rowing, whether it be within your own community or taking an athlete or a crew to the Paralympic Games. So I guess the first thing I want to do is thank you, because I wouldn't be in where I am if you weren't all doing what you're doing, you know, back in your home clubs. So when I took on this role, I really just wanted to make sure that at the bare minimum, I wanted to open up access to how we think about what we do at the high performance level. It breaks my heart where I see an athlete who thought, well, geez, I would have tried out for the team, but I never knew how to do it. So that's something we want to break away from. We want to also try and tackle the challenge. It's a good thing and a challenge of the fact that we're a very large geographic country. It's very difficult to cast such a broad net when we're still such a very small team within US Rowing. You know, total world team is 17 athletes and Olympic team is 11. So it's a small group of athletes, but we think very worthwhile to build a Paralympic pathway. For one, we want to grow rowing in general, and in particular, access and opportunity for people with disabilities. And by growing that pathway, we know we're going to get more athletes who have higher potential that may go on to the Paralympic Games. But the idea is that everybody at least knows how to access this pathway, knows some of the general expectations, and that the coaches also know how to guide an athlete who they think may have long-term potential or who they think just wants to get involved in rowing at a competitive level and enjoy that community and camaraderie that is competition. So I only have a few slides. This really isn't meant to be a full presentation. I thought I would give you some basic elements about what we're trying to do this year, what we've already started to do on a small scale, take some questions and let us know how better we can support the work that people are doing before an athlete comes to the national team. So Deb, the slides I'm seeing are not quite in presentation mode. I don't know how you want to do it.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
looking at,
I can switch that over.
you can move to from the title slide onto that the next slide, and you can either make the screen bigger for people or yeah, I think you can go click the upper right box maybe and go to full screen mode or something like that. Yeah.
You go ahead and I'll switch it.
Yeah, that's fine. It may be just my what I'm seeing as well, but if you get a chance to do that. So, you know, basically the structure of Paralympic development is no different from the senior men's and women's teams. However, we can't go exclusively by age category. So the levels are senior elite, and that's people either at national team selection events or at you know, at the elite level. We've got development is really the biggest population we want to try and work with and identify and figure out, because for para rowing, that encompasses U23 and collegiate, club and military, and people will be at many different ages in the development level for para rowing. I do list junior because that's an interesting possibility for us Right now, we're 6 years out from 2028, and a successful rower will want to have at minimum that amount of rowing prior to coming out for Paralympic Games. So we are trying quite hard to reach deep into the junior population. And that's both for PR3 as well as PR1 and PR2. I'm going to make some assumptions based on the names that I've seen come in. Everyone understands the Paralympic categories. PR3, loosely refer to it as sliding seat rowing. These athletes will generally, for the most part, be part of a traditional club that may or may not have a specific para offering. And the PR1 and PR2, I generally refer to that as fixed seat rowing, because that population of athlete will need specific equipment in order to participate fully and productively in the sport. So we have a little bit of, that's kind of how I loosely think about the pipeline for those two sets, even though PR1 and PR2, there is distinction there. PR1 being the former arms and shoulder, PR2 being the former trunk and arms, but we're trying to stay away from that nomenclature now. So PR1, 2, and 3, if you have questions, you can follow up with Deb. One thing Deb had asked me to put into a slide, which I hadn't put in previous presentations, is the, oh, there you go. That looks a little bit better. So title slide, and then go to next slide. Yeah, and then go to next slide. These are Paralympic Erg Standards. So they are ones we set in place because for my position, we need to identify people that will have podium potential in the Paralympic Games. So these are just a guideline and not at all a cutoff. And I worked with the high performance committee and a couple of other coaches to sort of see, oh, if you could stay on that erg slide, that would be great, to see what would be the best way to objectively do this and keep it fair and give some guidelines, but have some flexibility. So you'll have there's men and women, and I have 4 categories here: PR3, PR3AK, PR2, and PR1. And I decided we would break that into, have that extra PR3 category, because the above the knee classification has historically recorded very different results than any other subdivision within PR3. And you can sort of see that reflected in these standards. And after looking at data from the Crash B sprints and talking to Mark McAndrew, et cetera, these are based on 80% of the current world record at the time we came to these results. So, excuse me, at a percentage of the world record. So the senior and the elite are roughly 93% of the world record in that category on the erg. And then every category goes down by 5% until you get into the juniors. And the further we go down, the more off the mark we're going to be. A junior is probably in their novice level. These are not cutoffs, but we've decided to see what it would look like across the board by going from a percentage of the world record. I'll give you some initial feedback. We may keep these. We may provide a broader range next year. Some initial feedback. The top athletes that are continuing with us this year that have been on the team either last year or in previous years, I'd say about 50% of them are at the senior elite level, and the rest are more in the development to intermediate stage. So does this mean we should change our elite standards? Not yet, maybe, open to feedback. But if we're talking about podium potential, we've reached the podium in the PR3-4 in the last 2 games. I'd really like to see us discover the true potential for podium performance and get back to a performance of a Rob and Oksana. We can get to that level in the fixed seat category. And I know we've historically had medal performances in the other category, and that's where I'd like to get back to. And these roughly represent what I think would be top performances there. So I'm happy to share this. We're happy to take feedback. This is the first year we've sort of worked within these standards. And again, they are not meant to be a cutoff, but a bit of a guidance so that as coaches come in, we want to be able to be realistic with athletes and say how long it might take them to develop into something closer to an intermediate or development or elite standard. And again, with para rowing, I do list age groups there roughly, but that's just to show the corollary to what the senior team might be labeling as their different development categories. But age is quite a range for para rowing, especially in the fixed seat categories. The PR3 tend to be a bit younger, just post-college. The PR1 and PR2 have a range of, in their early 20s all the way up to in their 50s. So there is quite a range there. So we want to make that very clear. And we can go to the next, well, yeah, go ahead to the next slide. We can leave that there. And does anyone have any questions about that in particular? Okay. So how do we go from a handful of athletes who are at the elite standard? We don't have that many. We want to get more. We got to grow this entire pipeline. And some of you may have been on the receiving end of emails that you've gotten about something called a Paralympic Pathway. It's really, if I could give you the best corollary, this is really just honestly a bit of a recruiting questionnaire, similar to what you might get if you are an athlete who's looking to get recruited in college. It's a way for us to begin communicating with you and your coach to help identify where you might be in this pipeline. Are you novice? Are you experienced, but not quite at the level you would like to be at? And how we can best guide you toward some key competitions. Now, most people who are on this call are interested in competitive para rowing, and by competitive, I mean, we could mean elite, national team competitive, or just wanting to improve at their own local or regional level. All of that is good. We want all of that because we don't yet have a full understanding of what the para rowing community is already, or what potential we might find in the para athletic community beyond rowing. So we have some ways where we get this pathway application out. There was one in the recent newsletter that went out. If you haven't received that newsletter, let me know and we'll make sure you get on it. It comes out quarterly. We have been communicating with a number of external partners outside of rowing where we know athletes are training either in the CrossFit space or in other areas where we might be thinking about a talent transfer. Just letting people know that we're looking for talent ID. We know that the athletes we identify now will take time to develop and be ready for 2028. And we want to do that process in conjunction with the athlete and the coach, so everyone has very reasonable goals. So that pathway application kind of opens the door. And I've seen some coaches I've spoken with already because I've seen your athletes have filled out the application. I'll take you from left to right across the screen. So what happens after we receive the pathway, maybe not right away, but sometime in the 2 weeks leading after we receive a pathway application, no matter what the level is, you'll get a call back from one of our high performance staff, either myself or Tom Siddell, who is managing our training program, or maybe a coach. But we try and divide and conquer that list, make sure everybody gets a call back, make sure we get a good understanding of where that athlete is. Do they have a coach? Do they not have a coach? How did they find us? Do they have equipment? Do they not have equipment? Are they interested mainly in indoor rowing or ergometer training, or ready to be on the water? So that helps us get a better idea of where the athlete is already. And we like to recommend an initial competition if they haven't competed yet, or if they've been competing for a while, encourage them and their coach to maybe set a competitive goal for them at an appropriate point in the season. From there, I know that many people do not have already classification when they fill out this this pathway application. I think that's fine. Classification is a long process. We want to establish it when the athlete is ready to begin racing and competing. And I don't overemphasize that at this point, just mainly to make sure the athlete is actually eligible. And for para rowing, that would be a physical impairment or a visual impairment. And we can help the coach and the athlete understand that classification process. The next thing is just simply train. We like to see regular erg scores. The tests that we've taken on the national team level are a 2K, a 6K, and sort of regular 4 by 6 minutes with a rate cap. And long interval training is where we want to make sure every athlete who enters the pathway that they're gearing toward long interval intense training. And we don't recommend training programs at that time. We just want to make sure that they understand that it's different from CrossFit rowing or training for different CrossFit events, that the 2K event is the ultimate goal, but we try and set reasonable standards and work with athletes and coaches. The last thing is that we want the athletes to compete. There are a number of athletes training. I know it's difficult to get to regattas. Hopefully we make that easier on you by creating more accessible events. But I also know on the regatta organizer side, there are often racing opportunities that are left unsubscribed. It happens at the national team level. It happens at the club and local level. So we also want to support the people who are care about para rowing, that are trying to put events out there that are inclusive or accessible, and we want to support those events. So one thing we're going to do is not only encourage you to compete. We've identified a few, and hopefully in the next year we'll grow. We're going to have some athlete meetups, and we want to make sure people feel part of this pipeline, even if they may not be ready for another 5 or 6 years to compete or try out for a national team. That is okay. We want to feel part of the community. We want athletes to feel part of the community. So athlete meetups are going to be a key way we help get the word out. There'll be a member of our para high performance staff present at the athlete meetups. Ideally, we're also going to reach out and see if we can get some former or even current athletes to appear at these, so they can do a Q&A with the athletes that may be in attendance at the event. And we can just keep spreading the word. So we're looking forward to that. Deb, you can go to the next slide. I'll just let you guys know which events we're highlighting, at least initially. We would like to do more eventually, but at least we know we're going to be able to do this. If you can go to the next slide, which should have the events.
Trying to, Ellen.
That's okay. I can list them off the top of my head, but because
There we go.
Yeah. So these are, we'll have a presence at other ones, but at these events, we will be scheduling athlete meetups. If you plan to attend any of these events, you'll get some information from US Rowing via the registration. These will be for all the events that are US Rowing owned. The meetups will be held at the membership tent. There'll be a signage and a schedule there. So, and those meetups are open to anyone. If there are youth coaches at youth nationals who don't have an athlete, or maybe they have an athlete that wasn't ready to come to that event, these meetups are open to anyone. We'll try and encourage people to come by having some refreshments there, but generally speaking, it's just to learn a little bit more, meet some athletes, have athletes be able to ask questions, have our coaches be able to watch the athletes row, and maybe have a short consult with a coach or an athlete who may want that. And we're really excited about that. So these 5 events, we have already established somewhat of a presence there. I'm working on athlete appearances right now. Angel City Games, if you're not aware of it, it is only ergometer competition out in Los Angeles. We're working closely with them to try and get an on-water component in the future, which would be amazing. Youth Nationals, we have Tom Siddell will be there. I think Alice Henderson is going to be there as well. It's not scheduled yet, but there will be an athlete meetup. Youth Summer Nationals, Tom Siddell will also be at that, and you'll get information in the registration packets. Masters Nationals will have a presence at. I don't know the exact day of racing we'll do that on. That one will be have a military focus to that, so we're working hard to have make sure we schedule a military coach and military athlete there, because that's a big draw for some of the local, well, not even local and nationally. I think it's a big draw for the military who are out there competing and would like some more information about it, and to meet up with other veteran competitors. Beata, as we know, is one of our like longstanding, events exclusively for people with disabilities. So that's super exciting. That regatta is only one day. So we're working right now to try and make sure we have a presence there, what makes sense with their schedule. But those are the events that we're highlighting this year. I have an internal goal, which I guess I can share if this is going to be public, is if these pathway applications, I'll send everyone the application once we're done with the call, and maybe we can throw it in the chat. But the goal, I would love to get 200 people to fill these out. I don't know where these people are going to be in their trajectory or their pathway, but I'd love to hear from them and love to know what we can do to better help them. And I know our communications need to be better. They need to be more consistent. There are still athletes who I'm finding they end up being bounced back to me from other coaches, even other federations. So we know we need to get this better, but this is at least our start. And I'd love for your help in distributing these Paralympic pathway applications. Just a Google form. We don't even need an erg score. We ask for a number of push-ups they can complete, or an inverted row, or whatever comparable exercise they're comfortable doing. So it's not an elite national team application. It really is a pathway. It's going to help the national team identify where athlete potential is. It's also going to help Deb on the domestic side with programs. Where are athletes that are looking for programs? Where are the coaches that need our support the most in terms of resources to keep their athletes on the water safely? So that's really what we're trying to do this year, in addition to selection events, which are already kind of rolling forward. Selection camp for the 4 is starting in June. Trials will be coming in the USRowing Nationals agenda there for para. So June and July, our national team selection is already kind of churning along. We've got a double over in Gavarati right now, getting updated classification and competing over there. So the senior events are off and rolling. Grateful for the coaches that are able to do that for me in the meantime, because building this pathway is it's essential to what we need to do in 2028 and where we want to be. And it's essential for our sport that we really make para rowing a really prominent and well-defined aspect of US rowing. So I think I'll stop there. I don't know if anyone has any questions, Deb, but I know you've been running these calls for some time. Is there anything that I have not touched on that you think would be pertinent, or we can just open it up to general Q&A or comments at this time, or whatever you think?
I think if anyone has any questions, they should jump in on this right now. Any questions about the process?
I'm just now.
Hey, this is Patrick.
Oh,
sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Hey, this is Patrick Johnson with Athletes Without Limits. The 2 biggest questions, I don't know, Ellen, we've talked about this already, was where in the point that getting classifications, because I know for me, having athletes, especially the military athletes, where they come in, is getting them down the road where they think, oh, this is something I can do. It's very important for the services that we are not leading them into something that they end up finding they aren't eligible for. So right. I think for us, having more eligibility up front, and it's not something that we wait down the road, because at that point I've already lost them to other sports. And so is that something that we could have classification schedules done like, honestly, I need like 6 of them, like ASAP, just to know what to do with those folks or not.
Yeah, that's a great point. And ultimately, although we know that the classification, scheduling the panels, it does take some time. I know they just had a new course to train new people. My goal, if we could do this well, is to have a set point in the year, like let's say every athlete who needs classification, if we hear about them in January, we want to start that ball rolling as soon as possible. So Deb, is there any way to create more? I think the way to go would be to create more classification panels at these events that we're encouraging people to go to. And I do see your point, Patrick. We want to make sure, you're exactly right, to get those people. It's still hard to do it on an individual basis. Beata, I think, automatically offers it. And some, I know that some other events do. Deb, I'll just put that question to you. What is the best way to get large numbers? And by large, we are talking 6. I mean, each classification takes about an hour, 45 minutes, and about 2 months of paperwork back and forth, et cetera. Deb, what do you say?
There is a process. So,
Yes.
and that process is outlined on the US Rowing website. The very, very first thing that has to happen before an athlete can get classified is they have to submit the paperwork. I would back that up by saying there is also a tool on the World Rowing website. And all of these, again, we have the links on the US Rowing website. It's just recently been updated, that will help that athlete evaluate if they're even eligible. Because what we don't want to do is get someone set up right away to get them classified when they're not eligible in the first place. But a lot of the coaches I'm seeing here on this call are very experienced, and they know what is eligible and what is not. So next stage is the World Rowing FISA/FISA medical documentation has to be emailed to classification@usrowing.org, and it is reviewed by the chief classifier. And then once we get the green light on that, I can go ahead and schedule a classification panel, and it can be done, as an example, Patrick, we can set one up in DC. So we could do that at that location.
Well, I think that I agree with all that. And maybe if you had that, I have walked through that that toolkit, Deb, maybe if you had the link, we could put that in the chat. But I do agree, we need to consolidate ways where we can get classifications at events. So if someone has 6, that's a lot, and we want to make sure we take care of that, in one setting, and not try and do it piecemeal. That's the way I think it's been done in the past. And when we can offer classification well in advance, I know, Deb, we've done it at Crash Bees, haven't we? We've had classification panel there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good point, Patrick, is that maybe we focus on these initial events where we know we can implement a classification panel, and then we just have to give enough lead time to schedule those so that Judy can review the paperwork. That's correct, right, Deb?
Yeah, and if Patrick, if you have athletes going to an event, I can schedule classification at that event with a panel.
Yeah. Yeah, because these pathway events are, informational. I don't believe any of them have a classification panel set up, because these are, possibly we could think about Masters Nationals maybe, but I'll leave that to Deb. But I think event-based classification, similar to how World Rowing does it, where you can get a panel there for a day or an afternoon, where they know they're gonna see several athletes through the day. And I think that's a great suggestion.
Okay, thank you. And I know I'm just coming off of this right now because we just got back from Warrior Games trials for Army. And right after those things, a lot of the identifying athletes from other sports is where they're like wide open. They're super excited about rowing, but they are asking those questions. Hey, can I do this? And so maybe I know we have Stonewall Regatta in 4 weeks, and I have like 6 that I could get done there. Maybe I need to look at that toolkit. Would you mind at the end of this, when you send these slides to us, would you mind emailing also just put the link to where that stuff is? It'll just make it easier.
Yeah, for sure.
Because and I'll do that short thing. I know Spencer's on here also, who's one of our veteran leader coordinators.
Great.
And I think we need to jump on some people immediately.
Yeah, no, that would be great. Deb, I haven't used the toolkit in a while, but we'll do a quick Google search and make sure that everybody has it. If you have it while we're on the call here, we can just throw it in the chat. But we should, the toolkit you said is posted on our website as well, Deb?
Yeah, the link to it is, if you go to US Rowing members class and an adaptive and classification.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
entire protocol for classification is there. And I can't pull it up right now because I'm hosting
Oh,
the
yeah,
Zoom
okay.
and I have the PowerPoint up,
No problem.
but I'll also email it out to everybody too.
Yeah, it has no bearing on your actual result. No one's looking at that, trying to see if you're eligible or not. Like, it's really a sort of self-guided yes or no question at the end. It says something like you're likely to be eligible or you're not likely to be eligible. And that's all it is.
Perfect. Yeah,
find it?
thank you. I just need to remind myself of it. I'm at the boathouse right now with a bunch of kids, so.
Yeah, okay.
Uh,
Yeah, no problem. That's a great comment, because the more people we get classified, the more people can enjoy competing, because we want our competitions, even domestically, to be fair. And that way they have again, giving athletes a sense of where they are in the bigger picture. A great erg at a certain indoor championship may or may not mean they have long-term potential. We just got to get them on the water, get them enjoy competition, make sure they're eligible. But I think that's a great point. If we can think about these pathway events in the future as offering these panels right off the bat, I think it's awesome. Great. I'm looking through the names here now that I can see them. That's like super exciting. Anyone else have any questions? We see a lot of people that I've already been in touch with, a lot of new people. Anyone have any questions at all? Anyone want to ask a question of the anyone else on this call? Because there are, quickly scanning a handful of high performance para coaches on here. Patrick, we have Alice. I know I've been speaking with Mary Condon and one of her athletes. So I know Jen Fitzroy is on here from CRI. So a wealth of experience on the call.
Ellen, you said your goal was 200. What's your count right now?
Well, a bunch came in right after the newsletter. I think we're at like, a dozen or so. But
Okay.
most of them were new, which is good, because I had been sending out an earlier version of this. And I called it something else in the fall, but we're kind of rebranding it. It'll have some logo-y stuff. And I had about 30 of that. So we can maybe count them at the end. But if I get 200, fun fact, I'm working on a t-shirt. You're going to get a shirt if you fill out this application, USRowing Paralympic Pathway shirt. So it's going to be easy to identify you when you're at these athlete meetups. We'll have our shirts on. It'll be great. So we're working on that. So we'll get you those shirts as soon as possible. I think Danny had a question. Did I see Danny?
Yes, I do. Hi, Ellen. Good
Hello.
afternoon.
I'm so glad to see you. I remember you from the regatta in Worcester.
Yeah, and
Yes.
from the Olympic development team in Boston.
Yes. Yes, that's
Hey.
right. Good to see you.
Good to hear your voice too as well.
Yeah.
And my question is, I've been trying to participate in the national team and even compete in the World Championship or the Olympic. So what do I actually need? I want to know what I actually need to perform or to compete in either the World Championship or the Olympic. I know.
Yeah.
That's just what I want to know.
Yeah, sure. Can I ask you this? Are you working with a coach right now, or are you just kind of training on your own?
I'm with the Capital Rowing
Oh, good.
Club.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Well, I think first thing is we'll share some erg standards that we want to make sure you can hit and find out wherever you are on that pathway. Most of the events, you're PR3, yes? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm PR3, LTA,
PR3.
right?
Yes. So you'd have eligibility from what I remember for the 4 as well as the double. And I think last time I saw you were sculling, correct?
Yeah, I'm still sculling.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm thinking of doing doubles because, okay, if I want to compete for Nigeria, as everyone has, that's a category they want me to do in the Olympic or in the World Championship, but the team is not complete and it's holding me back.
Yes.
So I want to do maybe double and what I need for the double, even if I want to compete in the World Championship,
Sure. Yep. So there's the world, most of those events would be trials, at least in this country. So, but there's also, there's a pair 2-person boat. sweep oars. There's the double, which is mixed. You need a man and a woman. So your double partner would have a physical impairment. You'd have to find somebody else suitable to compete. Or you could do the four, where the four is a difficult boat to assemble for, even for the US, where there's a lot of athletes. So I don't know what the capacity is, but I know there is right now in Gavirati, where they have the International Para Regatta, there's a FISA development program. I think that would be a good one to connect to, because I know there would be interest in supporting that. So the main thing the athlete needs to do is train and work with a coach to meet some erg standards. The next thing is trying to figure out what is your best option to get racing experience. So I don't know how often you get to race, but
I race
racing
every season.
good. That's very good. What races do you have coming up?
I think once I renew my waiver with the US rowing, because it expired like
Don't worry, we won't tell.
10 days ago. So I should be able to race in the Stonewall coming up, like
Great.
Patrick mentioned earlier, that in 4 weeks. Yeah, I should be able to race in that, and every races that will be coming up around DC area. And I'm looking to race in the, I'm looking to come to Boston when the the head of the Charles
Head of the
comes
Charles.
on.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that
Fabulous.
is my target this year.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So I think you want to be able to have your ergometer scores like any other athlete, and then be able to find some on-water results. And then you look at your results based on what the time standards would want. I don't know what the coaches might be looking for from Nigeria, but I'm sure they'd be very happy to have a talented athlete. It's difficult though, because the matchup is challenging, right? There's no PR3 single at the World Championships or Paralympic Games, you see? So, and it's difficult for visually impaired anyway. So the matchup is really the thing that can be a challenge. But if that's your goal, train and compete to meet the ergometer and see how close you can get. Even if you row a double with somebody who's doesn't have para eligibility, just so you can see how fast you can be. Is that time standard is the time that you get at the Stonewall Regatta comparable to something that might be competitive at the international level? And we can help you and your coach figure that out, but presumably your coaches would be aware of that. So then we just have to know how far we have to go from where we are now, erg score wise or on water, to where we want to go.
I think my last erg score was it 330? Yeah, because I had it. I mean, my latest erg score was like 4 weeks ago, and I think I was around 330 or so.
Yeah, for 1K.
Yeah, I did a 1K. Okay, I'll get it from Brandon. It's just that I don't know if it's on this meeting now. He can easily look it up and let you know, because he has it. I did a 1K recently.
Yeah. So we'd be mainly looking probably for 2K scores, because all of the para events since 2016 are now 2,000 meters on water. So most of the erg standards are switched to 2,000 meters. So you have to go a little longer. That's okay. But yeah, I think if your folks in Nigeria would definitely possibly already be involved in the FISA development program that happens in Italy. I know there's one going on right now, and they're very interested in supporting new athletes from new countries who haven't been fully participating in all of the para categories. So I think you have very good options, and we're happy to help make those connections any way we can.
I would very much appreciate, honestly, because I mean, since 2016, this is 2022, that is 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I mean, time flies so fast, and one only has a window for something during a certain period of time. So, I mean, I would very much appreciate any help you guys could give to make it happen.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. We'll connect via email after this with your coach. Is your coach on the call or no? It's okay.
Oh, one of my colleagues just left.
That's
So
okay.
I will look through the names now and see
Yeah.
if either Megan or Brandon
Okay.
is on the call.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can email the presentation to you, Dami, so you have something on your computer to read.
Great.
Okay.
And I will say,
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks,
Yeah.
Ellen.
yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. It's nice to see you. There is one thing I'll tell this group about, because I think it's not going to happen this year. We came close, but the Gavirati Regatta, as I've talked about, is an awesome opportunity not only to get classification, get international racing experience, but also to have some development it's like an international camp. So it's like different countries working together, which I think is kind of one of the unique things about para rowing. And we are really looking to do something like that with Canadian Henley and Head of the Charles. And some of the federations from South America are very eager to do this. We would like to have an international classification panel happen at these events. And I think we might be a year away from doing that, but that's a real goal of us, because the folks from Canada, the folks from the US, it's very hard to get your international classification and credentials in order to race internationally. For us, it means a trip to Europe, often at a point in the year, which is sometimes disruptive to work or school. So we're trying to make it a little bit easier and have more opportunities for international racing, these international camps where the coaches and athletes can even row together and coach together. It's a really fun idea. So we are working on that right now with Rowing Canada, US Rowing, and some of the South American federations are interested as well. So more to come on that. And if anyone has any thoughts or wants to be on a committee for that, let me know. It was spearheaded by Canada. And just in the planning process and COVID, there wasn't really enough time to make it everything we hope to be, but similar to Gavirati, there would be a 3 or 4 day camp where the athletes would train together, meet one another, maybe have some presentations about technical aspects of para or share training tips, and then have a competition, because all of the countries are very interested in not only finding an athlete that can try out for their national team, but it's really hard to have your first or second race be the World Championships. So we need more high quality racing. We need more opportunities like this. So I'm hopeful about it. I don't want to say too much more. I think it's likely to happen. And it's something everyone who's been involved in the planning so far really wants to push for and create a Gavirati type experience, here in the, North America, South America. So.
Thanks a lot.
We've had some people asking about Erg Standards who were who've come onto the call a little bit.
Sure.
Late. Do you want to read Dami's to him? And
yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll go over it. I'll just go over just the PR3, and people can ask questions if they want anything further. Again, these are standards, and not cutoffs, but they are meant to, again, give a realistic expectation of trying to win a gold medal. We think the elite standard is, it may be adjusted, but there are people hitting these standards in almost every category. So at the senior elite level, top level for PR3 women for 2,000 meters would be 7:13. A PR3 AK, which is above the knee amputee, is 9 minutes and a little bit more, 9 minutes, 0.9. PR2 fixed seat upper body rowing only is 8:14.2. And PR1 for the women is 8:30.6. So again, these are based off a percentage of world record that exists. We use the Concept 2 world record tracking to make that first assumption. And then on the men's side, PR3 senior elite score, national team level, is a 619.1. A PR3 AK is a 750.1. And PR2 fixed seat using upper body is 703. And PR1 is a 743. So those are the elite national team. We do have, as I said, many people at the development and intermediate standard that are on the US team. So again, these are not cutoff scores. These are the sort of top of the summit scores that we want to let people know are possible. They're possible because somebody has done them. Development and intermediate obviously go down accordingly. And I'll just make a quick disclaimer about the PR3AK. It's just that historical data, those athletes are generally speaking at the top level and a recreational level. The use of one leg in a 2,000 meter rowing competition has generally yielded scores that are slower even than the PR2. Now, is that because of stroke rating or what have you? So we put that in there because we thought it was interesting enough to have it have its own category. I'm not sure we'll keep that specific category moving forward, but it does give an eye-opening experience about what it really means to have an amputation and perform in the PR3 boat class if that amputation is above the knee. So does anyone else have any questions about the standards? Again, they're not cut off, especially down at the junior U16 or what I would call novice level. We just extended the percentage all the way down across the chart. That's the area that we have the most variability, even among athletes we think have high potential. So again, not cutoffs, but based on objective standards, at least for now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else have any questions? Alice, how are things training wise with Russell? A+, good. Yes, I will tell you, Russell is incredible. Can I share a few fun facts about Russell, Alice? Is that okay? You're on mute, so I'm going to take that as a yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So Russell is amazing. He's a veteran. He's in his 50s. He's one of the top competitors on the rowing machine, not only for his age class, for his Paralympic category. So
In the
Russell,
world.
yes, in the world. Sorry, excuse me, in the world. Yeah. So he has hit the standard that has earned him some funding from the military, as well as some funding from USRowing. So he's been on the team in a couple of different categories. He rowed in the PR3 double originally, but recognizing pretty quickly he was miscategorized. He's now rowing PR2 and quite successful. He was 10th at the Paralympic Games. He'll be rowing a single this year at trials, I believe. Again, just an incredible athlete, and just by way of example to show that the development pathway for a para rower is not driven by age and experience the way it is maybe for the senior men and women. So he's awesome, a great spokesperson, trains relentlessly, and really is an incredible athlete. And I'm just super excited you're on the call today, and just being able to give people a little bit more concrete picture of what we're talking about when we have the elite power rower. It comes in different shapes and sizes and ages, but the willpower to be the best is universal across the athletes that are at the very top there. So thanks for letting us brag about Russell here briefly.
It's really all about his coach. I think that's what you forgot.
There you go. That is all about the coach. It's all about the coach. Exactly. Anyone else have any other questions? I'll talk a little bit about a new partner that we're working with. Only I see Mary on here. The Adaptive Training Foundation in Dallas. We're going to be working a little bit more closely with them in the future. They have some great programs, and I think we do need to find ways where athletes who have maybe been competing mainly on the ergometer, but we want to help them find their way onto the water. They maybe need a little bit different variety in their training routine. They run some amazing programs. They're in Dallas, Adaptive Training Foundation. From what I understand, as the group classes go, they are free to participants. They have a veteran focus, but it's not exclusively military veterans, but just a great resource for the strength and conditioning side for athletes with disabilities, particularly in the fixed seat categories. And that's something we want to really look more closely at as we develop our national team program, is how to create the optimal rowing strength and conditioning program for fixed seat athletes. We know it's going to be fairly bespoke. We know this, and we want to get more access to new athletes, but also sharing knowledge across the coaches at a resource like Adaptive Training Foundation, as well as the coaches that we have in-house. So we're excited about some of these other new relationships that we're finding beyond the rowing community that we think will expand our reach and expand our opportunities and the opportunities for the athletes. Similar to how we've been working with Angel City Games, that's more a multi-sport event that takes place. Laura Goodkind, one of our national team rowers, introduced us to them, and that's an ongoing relationship. And I'll be heading out there in the end of June. So see what's going on the ground there, see what we can build. Anyone else have any questions? Anything I can help anyone specifically with, or at least take down some notes and get back to you if I can't answer it?
Yes, Spencer Sprague here, veteran leader with Athletes Without Limits. I have a rower who, or rather an athlete who is very fit and actively looking to get into rowing on the water. He's done some ergometer rowing.
Yeah.
He has been barred from some other sporting events because he has some tattoos that those sporting events found to be distasteful per their guidelines. And I was just wondering if you had any information about that with respect to rowing.
That is a great question. I will have to get back to you on that. I don't really know. I never had that question before. So I guess I'd have to, maybe we can talk offline and find out the particulars there and what it would be. US Rowing is obviously trying to make sure that all their events are, you know, inclusive and open and have athletes feel that they're not only physically safe, psychologically safe. So I would imagine as long as it was within the guidelines there, but you know, I wouldn't be able to answer that specifically, but it's a great question. And maybe we can take that offline and I can workshop that through just to make sure that, you know, if your athlete shows up, that he knows he's safe, and that athletes and coaches who work with the athlete are also safe and within the guidelines of the event. I guess that's what I would say initially, but happy to chat with you offline.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. I think I already have your email, but I'll follow up with Deb to make sure. This is great stuff because honestly, we try and work through this on a number of different levels with DEI and inclusive events and all kinds. So, you know, these particular questions are illustrative of where we need answers and where we can definitely learn from what's actually going on in the community. So I'm happy to follow up about this.
Well, I want to thank Ellen for speaking today on the Adaptive Zoom meeting, and thank all of you for coming and supporting Adaptive Rowing and doing the work that you're doing back at your home clubs. And everybody, I think, knows how to get in touch with Ellen or myself at US Rowing if you have further comments or suggestions. I am looking for a topic for we're already in May, so the month of June. If somebody has something that or a speaker that you'd like to have as a guest, please reach out to me so we can get that scheduled. And we will sign off. Thank you very much, everyone, for
thank you, everybody.
This afternoon.
It's appreciated.
Great
Thank
meeting.
you, Ellen.
Thanks,
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.